everybody, Klaire Fluffle here, and what a fitting game to have right after we talked about Dreamland 3. This being a direct sequel to that game and all, it just fit together perfectly. Speaking of the perfect fit, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel if you enjoyed the video, since both things really helped me out. If you're feeling super generous, please consider becoming a puptron on my Patreon for nifty perks, including 2-day early access to videos, including the final episode of the Kirby soundtrack rankings. Special thanks to my head-patting Fluffle fan puptrons, Biohazard, Fioriole, Tyke, Jane, and remember, Miss K says bippity bippity bop. I love you guys! Kirby 64 is not only one of the most unique games in the series, but it also boasts one of the most unique soundtracks too. This is no surprise, as Kirby 64 was the only Kirby game released on the Nintendo 64. Every console in the old days had its own sound style, and the Nintendo 64 matched up with Kirby incredibly well. Identifiably game music, it had what it took to give Kirby music that extra oomph it lacked on older hardware. We not only wound up getting another dimension in Kirby 64, well, half another dimension, 2.5D, that good stuff, but to this point, this is the most dynamic a Kirby soundtrack had ever been. Instruments, scope, variety, you name it, Kirby 64 had it all. The World Select music does a great job of showcasing just how much more the Nintendo 64 was able to provide for Kirby compared to previous consoles. That track is also an excellent segue into talking about how excellent of an atmosphere Kirby 64 has. This should come as no surprise. I highlighted the atmosphere so many times in Dreamland 3. This is a direct follow-up. Even if the number after 3 is not 64, it all still adds up. For Dreamland 3, it used its creative art style to shift between happy, upbeat fun times and somber, sobering points effortlessly, and the music reflected that excellent. Dreamland 4, Kirby 64, I might keep that one, I don't know. Kirby 64 does much the same, but much larger. It starts similarly to Dreamland 3 with a very cheery, cute opening level track that also happens to be one of my favorites in the game. But the music complements the game very differently due to the more dynamic camera angles. Instead of feeling like Dreamland 3, it winds up feeling more like what Canvas Curse and Epic Yarn do. It draws you into the world and keeps you in a good, happy mood to not ruin the immersion. Until the mini-boss music comes on, then it's all intense, but still in a fun way. The music feels like a part of the world in Kirby 64, and that's something it does better than both Canvas Curse and Epic Yarn. In most Kirby games, the music feels like, well, music. Something separate from the environment that you're in, being complementary to whatever it is that you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I would never say there's anything wrong with that. But the music of Kirby 64 feels so lived in with the area that you're exploring. I don't listen to, say, Down the Mountain Stream and think, wow, that's great music that goes alongside Down the Mountain Stream from Kirby 64 for the Nintendo 64. And that's for two reasons. One, I listen to it and I just think, holy moly, this is amazing. But more relevant, it feels like it's a part of this living, breathing world that is Kirby 64. The music playing in the background doesn't feel like it's just playing in the background. It feels like it's a natural part of this mountain stream that you're running down. On the whole, Kirby 64 feels so alive. And I'll admit, a part of why I think this is because of the dynamic camera angles and set pieces throughout the game. It just looks so much more alive when you can see things in 3D, something that Forgotten Land showcased fantastically. But the music is absolutely a part of that too. Running through volcanoes in Neostar is a big deal, but what makes it feel intense is this booming track that's playing in the background. Which, again, sounds less like music in the moment and just something that's a part of this volcano. This even applies to remixes, which is insanely impressive given they're not fully original tracks. I mentioned Down the Mountain Stream already, but the track that used to be my favorite in the game, Above the Clouds, arguably does this even better. Butter Building is a more iconic track, which makes it harder to stand out, but this makes better use of that cloud motif than even most versions of something like Bubbly Clouds. It just sounds so natural. Kirby 64 is a game with music, of course, and I'm not trying to say it's managed to surpass the concept of music and become something all of its own that nothing else in the world has ever been able to replicate since, or whatever. It's incredible music, but in that moment, when you're playing the game, it doesn't feel like music. And to me, that's incredible. As is the case with all of the best Kirby soundtracks, what helps Kirby 64 keep this feeling alive is how much variety there is. You're never going to get a Kirby soundtrack that isn't loaded with adorable audio delight, and on this front, Kirby 64 completely delivers. Just listen to something like Aquastar. Pure Kirby goodness. But for once, I'd actually say these are in the minority. A lot of the more positive and cute tracks aren't that high energy. My favorite current track, Shiverstar, describes what I'm talking about. If this was in a game like Epic Yarn, straight up, I wouldn't be surprised, given how effortlessly it makes me smile. It's so in tune with the cold, chilly level it's playing during, but it never once gets super upbeat or happy or fast. It's always slow, always calming, always kind of warm, despite having an obviously chilly exterior. And while this is absolutely my favorite of the bunch, the game is loaded with stuff like this. Quiet Forest, the ruins, all of the world map tracks, barring Ripplestar, all of the cutscene tracks, stuff like that. But to make these stand out even more, Kirby 64 has got its fair share of more intense, sometimes even creepy tracks. My favorite of the downright creepy stuff, definitely Ripplestar Catacombs, if only because it's so in your face with how unsettling it is. But of the higher energy stuff that still keeps a less positive tone, that's the other Ripplestar theme. This is just such a groovy groove. It makes me want to dance. Moving on, I still have so many videos to finish somehow. I mentioned cutscene music earlier, which is something I don't do very often during these videos. Kirby 64 is a standout game in the series for how it presents its story. To keep things tied to the music, a lot of what the story is exploring various different areas of so many different worlds. Exploring and finding the crystal shards is the selling point of the story, justifying and, more importantly, contextualizing these fantastic cutscenes. Fighting enemies and bosses to get more shards in hopes of restoring the crystal shard to its former glory. Based on what I've said in this video, you can kind of tell where this is going to be going, and while it doesn't tell its own story like, say, Mass Attack does, the music of Kirby 64 fits the goals the story sets out to tell because it doesn't even feel like music most of the time. It helps you immerse yourself and feel like you're there, traveling the world with Kirby and Day-to-Day and the others. Oh, also, I mentioned bosses, so I have to bring up the boss battle music. It is unreal how good the boss tracks are in this game. Game in general just has such a good sense of scope to it. The Neo-Star music growing more and more intense as you travel further into the volcano, down the mountain streams staying fun and vibrant as you run through the river, or the boss music never letting up until you beat these extra tough... No, you're right. This is Kirby 64. Let me try that again. Until you beat these extra foes. The final regular boss, Miracle Matter, even gets a unique variation of the boss music, and it's somehow even better. It's just fantastic all around. Now, this is the part where I bring up my issues that I don't have, because of course, I don't have issues with the soundtrack. Sometimes I wonder if I only like it so much because it's the only Kirby on the N64, as is to say, if we had another, this wouldn't be so unique. But no, it still would be. We've had so many other Kirby games feel unique and one of a kind on platforms with multiple games. I just talked about Dreamland 3 yesterday, and that absolutely falls under this category. So no, for all of the reasons that I've already gushed over, this is a one-of-a-kind soundtrack, and it's fantastic. Definitely my favorite selection of tunes on the Nintendo 64. And I'm not alone in thinking that. Listen to Pikachu gush about the music, because hey, why have one person gush about great music when you can have two? Or is it Pikachu? I really need to start figuring out how to pronounce my guests' names.
Hey everyone, Pikachu here, and today I'll be briefly joining Klaire to discuss the music of Kirby 64. If you didn't already know, it's my favorite Kirby game, one of my favorite games ever in fact, and the OST is simply incredible. Don't worry, alright OST, I still love you, it's alright. I could go on and on and on about why Kirby 64's OST is so fantastic, but I've only got so much time here, so I'll try to keep it brief, summarize a few of my major points, and hopefully I can explain why I believe Kirby 64's OST is the best in the series. Well, first things first, I think the music sounds good. Shocking, I know, but trust me, I have my reasons, and one of them is Kirby 64's wonderful sound font. So many great instruments here, it's such a pleasing thing to listen to. Some highlights that I just think are really fun to listen to include Inside the Ruins, which is just such a funky song, it sounds so nice, but it's got an air of mystery to it as well, which fits the black pyramid spaceship thing it plays inside. Shiver Star perfectly captures the feeling of a snowy winter day. It's cheerful and fun, and I love that part where the pitch rises towards the end. Above the Clouds is my favorite remix of Butter Building. It's so poppy and fun, I just love it so much. It's an incredible song. Best butter building and one of the best in the whole OST. Serious contender for the top spot. That regular boss theme, best regular boss theme in the Kirby series. It's so good. That breakdown and the part with the higher pitched tones near the end before it loops is just... I mentioned it a few times, but these songs really do sell atmospheres. They really do. And one that instantly comes to mind that excels at this is Factory Inspection. The ever-present sounds of the sinister machinery coupled with the gradual rise and build up to that melancholic ending, which, should the fan theories be believed, really does hammer in the fact that you might just be standing on a frozen Earth trapped in a nuclear winter. And then there's Zero 2 Battle. Don't even get me started on Zero 2 Battle. It's my favorite final boss theme in the series. It just has a feeling of finality to it. It's so intense yet sorrowful at the same time. And you know that this battle isn't gonna end until one side falls. And then when you remember that this is a battle between Kirby and Zero, two different philosophies, two different ideals, two sides of the same coin, a said coin being void, then the music hits all the harder, and the whole fight just hits all the harder when it all just comes together. You know what I'm saying? Even some of the smaller songs and things like minigames and even menus go hard. And those are some of the things and songs that make Kirby 64's OST a masterpiece. Ishikawa and Ando were cooking with this one. Ishikawa especially. That dude composed like all of the stage and boss themes himself. Like, what was he doing? He was cooking so hard. 64 is a fantastic game, and I would be lying if I said the OST didn't play a part in why I think it's so good. And so with all that said, go play Pikmin 4. And Pekachow out!
Is it weird that I'm still thinking that we're only at number 8? Like, I'm ranking the soundtrack way too low? I guess it's gonna feel like that until we get to number 1, but there's only one way to find out. Given we're only 2 days away from the end, I am sure you know what that way is. Sticking around for the next videos. And, of course, let me know what you think the next soundtrack is going to be. Here's a hint. It's going to be very, very hard for me to talk about it. With that, I have been Klaire. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you around. Bye!